Hi, everyone, and hi, Emmaleen. It's nice to have
Hello.
you here from Emmaleen's Astrology. And today we're going to be talking about Mars retrograde in Gemini. We're going to go through the houses, and I've set up the chart so that the only planet on the chart is Mars, and we're going to move it through the houses. It'll remain in the sign of Gemini, and we will move Gemini around to each house so we can discuss the effects of Mars retrograde in Gemini in each house. Mars will be retrograde from October 30th to January 12th, 2023. And the last time Mars was retrograde completely within Gemini was October 28th, 1943 to January 10th, 1944, almost covering the same degrees. So if you have, I'm using whole house signs here, so you notice the signs start at 00. If you have Gemini bordering on a house cusp, you will want to listen to the description of this Gemini and retrograde in for both houses, so you get the idea of how it's going to interact in each house. We are going to get started now. Is there anything you'd like to add to the opening?
No, I'm just excited to do this video with you today, Dorothy. This is one of the major transits for this year, I think, this Mars retrograde. And it's going to add a certain flavor to the mix with all the other stuff we've got going on with the astrology. So I think it's good that we're doing this video so we can give people some information on what Mars retrograde means generally, and then how they can work with it in their charts.
So if you have, by the way, I'm Dorothy Taylor from Soul Chiron. Introduce myself. If you have anything in any of the signs between 8 degrees and 25 degrees, Mars is going to make multiple aspects to that.
Yes, good point.
And trigger the energy in those planets at different aspects, different angles. It's going to make a prolonged square to Neptune. It's also at a trine to Saturn in transit. All of this is in transit. But it will also make aspects, create relationships with the planets in your natal chart. So
yeah, I think also look at what's at 8 degrees. If you have anything at 8 degrees of Gemini in particular, then that's going to be triggered by this Mars. So have a look at your charts, get to know your charts. Hopefully you're all doing that really well, but we're going to talk about the houses today so you can see, like Dorothy just pointed out, really, really good tip. If Gemini is in 2 houses, then it's going to affect 2 houses for you. So if your Gemini house is in part of the 3rd and the 4th, you know, it's going to be traveling through the 3rd and the 4th. So listen to both of those houses today to get some clues as to how it's going to affect you.
So the first thing to do is notice where Gemini is in your chart, and the house go around in a counterclockwise direction, this being 1 and ending in 12. And so that's the way we're going to carry Mars around today. So locate Gemini, and when we get to that house, pay particular attention to the information for that house. But we're going to start out with Mars retrograde in the first house here. And Mars retrograde in the first house is going to bring us to ask the question of what are the beliefs, what is the perception and understanding as it relates to our identity and how we want to go forward. So Mars is about asserting our identity, but we also want to look at the beliefs we have about ourselves and who we are and how we're presenting that picture to the world, to the outside world. So retrogrades tend to ask questions. And the question here is, what do I think? How do I put into words what I believe to be my identity?
Yeah. And I think if we just sort of look at Mars retrograde in Gemini generally, we were talking about this a bit before the
Mhm.
video started, but we can see an overall theme of um well, I when I think of Mars in Gemini going retrograde, I think of angry words, people that get aggressive, people that are going to be talking more. There's definitely just more of an active mind. So if you sort of put that into them, also just thinking, anxiety, all these type of Gemini themes that the action is being pushed towards with Mars there. So if you look at that as a bit of a backdrop as well to when we go through each house and see how that's going to add a flavor to the house. And also, yeah, like what you were saying with a retrograde, what we're doing when there's a retrograde is, I think there's a lot of fear around retrogrades at the moment. People go, because they've heard of Mercury retrograde, oh, it's a really bad time, it's terrible. But I think looking at the positive of a retrograde is that we are learning, we are redoing, we're revising, and we're getting to see what's working and what's not working for us so that we can go forward with some fresh information. So if you're looking at Mars in the first house for you, what are you reworking about you? What are you revising? What do you feel that you could do things differently? And then sort of put those questions to you and move forward with the answers when it finally moves out of retrograde in January.
And there are situations where people have not been assertive enough with what they believe or with what they think or how they perceive. So if you're
Yeah.
in a relationship with someone or someone is pushing their ideas on you and you're kind of a passive person and you haven't pushed back at all, even though you don't have the same beliefs, then this Mars retrograde in Gemini is certainly going to help you address those inequalities. Um,
Yeah.
Gemini is the sign of the twins, and it wants to experience things from both sides of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is about assertiveness and being able to stand up and take action. In
Yeah.
this case, based on what you think and what you perceive, and in for the first house about who you are. Um, do consider whether you are pushing or someone is pushing you. And those situations, those kinds of situations, you want to make sure that if you do address something, that there is a good reason to address it. Don't just push back on somebody for the sake of pushing back to protect your identity or because you are who you are. You don't need to protect your identity from others, but you may feel as if you need to at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the other thing about Gemini is it can be duality. You can be doing it twice. There might be two things for all of us that we're revisiting, revising. It might come up, or it might be that we're having to do something twice.
Or taking that duality idea, you could experience this energy from both sides. So you are
Yeah.
the assertive person, or you are the one that someone is asserting an issue with. So
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to how that's working and do yourself a favor. If you're conscious of which side of the spectrum you're on, you can have a fairly lively, good conversation while this is going on with someone else. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm going to move this to Mars in the second house.
That's a good point about the lively conversations. I think because we were talking about this as well before we started the video. There's the higher form of Mars, and there's the lower form of Mars, and it's with all astrology, with all aspects of energy. We can choose to work with it the way that we want to. So if you're looking at Mars in Gemini, we could say, oh, that's hasty words. That's people saying things quickly. and then regretting them, or that's people saying things that are rather shocking or mean sometimes. Or let's look at the advantages of a Mars in Gemini. A quick mind, multitasking, someone who uses words as their tools, like a lawyer or something like that, a clever way with their words. So, there's the higher form and the lower form. So as we're going around the chart and we're talking about how you can use this energy, bear that in mind. There might be people going a bit crazy or being a bit aggressive. But step back and you use this in a way that's going to strengthen your mental ability.
And that's a good point. We can argue or we can debate. And
Yes.
when you argue, we really don't listen to the other person's point of view. In a debate, both people are listened to, and there's a certain amount of respect that still exists between those two people. So
Yes,
notice
true.
whether you're debating, which
Mm-hmm.
includes listening to the other person's point, or whether you're arguing and shutting them out and just trying to prove your point.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of anxiety with Mars and Gemini about the words we use, the way we communicate to.
Yeah.
In the second house, it's about
Mm.
looking at our personal resources, and that includes our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. That's the first thing that came into my mind. The traditional sense of the second house, people always go to income and your possessions. But, my first thought was this is going to affect people's self-esteem in the second house. It could affect your self-esteem.
Well, and one way those two tie in is people tend to think the more money they have, the more worthy they are, the more their self-confidence shoots up. Um, we often associate resources with worthiness.
Yeah.
But the odd thing is if we have a high self-confidence, it doesn't matter how much resources we have, we know we can always get them. So it's more the self-esteem drives the search for resources rather than the need for resources is what determines our self-esteem. So
Yeah.
try to switch that up. What are your ideas about your resources? Do you see them as somehow saying that you are worthy or not worthy of your position in life? And try to disassociate the idea that resources are what give you value. The other issue here is the question about values. What do you value? Do you value yourself, or do you value the things you have? And there's a huge difference in that as far as the self-esteem and the self-confidence question goes. Your values are what determine how you look at your resources and how you use them. So whether you feel as if you can use them productively. Someone who is confident has that knowledge that what they need, they can go out and get, or figure out a way to manage their resources in a way that meets their needs. But when we start attaining resources because we feel like it gives us value, like the big house, the nice car, those types of things, they somehow make us more worthy, then our values are a little off. So you want to look at what you value, look at the values that you live by, the values that you set on your objects, but also your money and yourself.
Yeah, and maybe tying it into, your mind. What do you value about what you've learned, about what you want to learn, in some ways. And also, I think there's the danger of the other side, putting out to the eighth house. You don't need to be listening to other people's values and their opinions. It's like you finding your own feet here, you revising what you've learned, you deciding what's important to you. And of course, it really could just hit your income. There could be the traditional sense of the second house stirred up here. Maybe there's a second income stream coming in some way, or you're revising the way that you earn your money, maybe you're changing a job or going to self-employed, there could literally be that type of the transit could be activating that part of your life as well.
Yeah, taking the action to manage your resources, whether they're
Yeah.
financial or, um, you know, Gemini in the second house would have put a place of value on information, a value on perceptions and understanding, their ability to communicate. So this is a huge resource for Gemini's second house. And so Mars here is giving you the opportunity to look at all of those things again and decide what it is that you actually want to put forth out there as your values, using your words, using your perceptions and your understanding.
I mean, if you have a Gemini second house, sometimes there is you do have two ways of earning money as well, so maybe that's two income streams. So maybe there's a revision to part of the way you have those income streams. I also think a Gemini second house can be a warrior as well. So just watch for that with this Mars transiting through that house, and try to get out of the mind a bit and get into the body, or some breath work to control any anxiety that may come up.
Yeah, Mars and Gemini can definitely bring forth some anxiety. So I'm going to move the chart to the third house, and I keep doing that backwards. Let's see. So Mars in Gemini in the third house, speaking of anxiety,
Yes.
literally your mind never stops.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is going to be crazy for you people with the Mars going through the third. You're going to feel, I don't think you're going to be able to sleep at night unless you write a to-do list before you try and go to sleep.
But also, if you have your sun in Gemini,
Yes, yeah.
Mars is going to be affecting your sign. So,
Yeah.
this could be, have been, and will be 6 months of constant debating in your own mind, whatever issues that you are dealing with. It's also about communications. It's about your beliefs. It's about your perceptions and your understanding. And what Mars is doing is asking you how you want to process this information, because Mars is taking action of some sort. And so Mars in Gemini in the third house can have you eagerly learning, putting effort into understanding your perceptions and communicating your understanding of perceptions. And that requires that we think about what it is we're perceiving and how it's processed. And the great part of Mars in Gemini in the third house is you can broaden your perspective. You put some effort into broadening your perspective, and learning a diversity of points or discussions, or just learning, eager to learn.
Yes, yeah, the mind is going to be very active with a Mars in Gemini going through the third house. So you can really apply that well to learning, if you want to study, writing. In fact, journaling could be maybe a good way of trying to use this Mars energy. Instead of trying, ideas floating around everywhere, trying to center them a little bit. So maybe journaling, writing, that would be, you'd be on fire with your words, writing them down, I should imagine, if you wanted to get that kind of project done. The other thing to think about with the third house as well is the relationship with your siblings. If you have brothers and sisters, that could be that they might be acting a little bit sharp, or maybe a little bit angry, or they might be feeling, you might be experiencing them as feeling that towards you. So that's something to watch for as well. Or there just could be a lot of action and energy brought towards your relationship with your siblings, the higher form. So using it in that way. And of course, it's also our neighbors. So hopefully there won't be any neighbor disputes,
And,
any argument.
and the local environment in general, anywhere you
Yeah.
go, like, just around your neighborhood. Um,
Yeah.
it's also moving without thinking,
Yeah.
moving, noticing what's going on around you. And so you want to make sure that you take the time, because Mars it can push you to move quicker in right around in your local environment. Take your time, slow yourself down, take your time. One of the other things that I thought about was we tend to when we want to learn something, we just get kind of ravenous about the information and we burn ourselves out. If we do have those, we're burning ourselves out, or if we have those thoughts that are more aggressive, either towards ourselves or towards others, our brains work on oxygen. And so practicing the 4x4 breathing method to slow our brain down so that it can turn over a new thought is an excellent idea the entire time Mars is in Gemini. And it doesn't matter which house it is in, which means which area of life it is you're expecting. You can use that Mars to the energy, the air energy of Gemini, to breathe in deeply. Gemini rules the lungs. And so breathe in deeply and your brain will turn over a new thought. When you feel your breath shortening to your chest, then to your throat, you need to lower that breath back down all the way into your lungs so your brain can have a new thought. Your mind can turn over a new thought. So let's go now
Yeah.
to the fourth house. Did you have any more thoughts on third house?
No, I think just the neighbors and the siblings was the last thing I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Watch out for arguments over you didn't clean up your trash outside my house.
so Mars in the fourth house is an interesting take on Gemini in the fourth house. Mars indicates a lot of activity in the home, wanting things to be the way that you want them in your home. It's a good idea, though, to make sure that you're considering others in that dynamic. I mean, everybody, if you live with someone, whoever else is in the house, you may have to compromise. But it is a time when you can at least assert the ideas that you have about how you want your home to be run, or there could be arguments with people in your house. So if you have something you want to change, bring that change up, allow them to have time for their emotional adjustment to that, and then discuss it rather than trying to force the issue and make it the way you want it to be. We don't have the ability to control anyone or anything. We do have the ability to influence it. And so this Mars energy can allow us to put forth or to assert what we would like. And then we have to use our perceptions and understanding of the situation to work out what's best for all of those involved. Does that make sense? You may even present yourself as more aggressive out there in the world in your career,
Yeah.
in your public reputation, because you're feeling all of this energy in the very root, the very safest, what would seem like the safest place in your chart. This is the fourth house. That's our roots, and we move around the rest of the chart from there. Everything stems from there. So
Yeah.
we can present ourselves fairly aggressively when we have this much energy in the fourth house of home. And of course, we are our own best home, not the four walls that we live in. But so pay attention to how you're presenting yourself to others. Notice what's going on, how others receive you when you're putting forth your ideas. But again, always give that opportunity when you have something you want to change or you have an issue with something, always put it forward, not as a demand, but as a topic for discussion or debate, and allow others to have their emotions, because if they feel the need to become defensive, or if you feel the need to become defensive and you feel as if you're being forced, your automatic response will be to push back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think, it might feel like there can be some hostility at home as well. This is our home. This is our sanctuary, like you were saying. This is a really intimate part. So to have Mars going retrograde during that part, I mean, this is the part deep within us. This is where we come from. This is like our childhood. This is all that intimate part. So the part that no one really sees. The 10th house is what we put out there. The 4th house is what we keep within. So what are you reworking in that sense? And possibly a connection to where you've come from, your parents, your background, your heritage. Look to your childhood. Where are your roots? Maybe sometimes there's, when I'm doing readings with people and they have fourth house transits, there's a connection to, oh, my childhood home or my parents or something going on with them, so it could also be putting in that energy as well.
You also want to notice if you're having any automatic responses. So you're not actually thinking through, you just acting. And those are based on old conditions, outdated responses that don't serve you in the situation that you're in now. You're no longer a child, right? If you're listening to this, you're not a child anymore. And you're living with different people. So how does that change the situation you want to create? So the fifth house.
Mm-hmm. And you might also just to come into my mind, you be thinking about just changing your home around you, redecorating, or you know what, I had that room as an office and I don't like it as an office anymore. Maybe I want to redo it. It could be something like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep, 5th house.
And learning in your home, like learning about that redecorating and that sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, studying at home.
That too, or working at home.
Working at home, studying at home. Yep.
So the fifth house is about our self-expression, how we put ourselves out there, the fun we have, the things we find enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fifth house with Gemini, and at fifth house Geminis, they love to read, they love to write, they love to use words. And it is an area where we want to laugh a lot. We like to communicate, but we want to laugh. In the fifth house, we want that. This is reading or writing for fun, for self-fulfillment, for um, to make yourself feel better. So any of this self-expression here may end up out in the world as well. And so, consider what you're doing. You may, with Mars retrograde here, you may take up writing for the first time. You may remember when you were a kid that you really enjoyed writing. And so you start writing, the great novel. And you put a lot of effort into it. Spend some time thinking about how you want to do that, because when Mars turns forward on January 12th is when you'll make the most progress, but you can certainly spend some time planning now. And that's true of Mars retrograde in any house. March or January 12th is going to be when Mars turns around and begins to go forward again. And you'll get this information or get this idea that you're having to go back over this old ground. So use the time when Mars is retrograde from the 30th to the October 30th to January 12th to plan and just to take small steps towards what you want to do to see how it would work. So actively do planning, actively figure out, debate, get information, learn, so that when you go forward, you can use it for the best of its ability to have the most fun. Mars in the 5th house is an indication that there are sports that you like, especially in Gemini, team sports, sports with other people, doing things with other people's, couple skating, dancing, all of these things that require two people, or the energy to get out there and do stuff. Remember, we said there would be a lot of activity. This is a house where there's going to be a lot of activity. So learning to dance with your partner would be a great,
dancing.
It would be fun. So this is our creative identity. So Mars is asking what you really think of your creative identity. Is it a waste of time? Do you think creativity is a waste of time? Do you think fun is a waste of time? Maybe not. Maybe now you see the value in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's also it's where we create, and it's where we create our actual babies as well, our children. So if this is a time where you've been thinking about children, you might feel like you are rethinking it, or putting more, your thoughts are directed towards creating, because this is where we create and we have the fun. It's not the pregnancy house, but it's the creation house. So it's like thinking about those things that we make. And obviously that includes the babies, but also like other things that you want to create as well. So it might just be a work baby or something like that. This is energy going into those areas, that area.
So creative projects of all sorts.
Yeah.
And what one person feels is creative, somebody else may be taking for granted that they do that all the time. And
Yeah, that's true.
Creative, so when you're painting your house, you may not feel it's that creative, but hey, you pick color, you decide what colors the doors and those sorts of things. That's creativity. Creativity usually comes in small snippets of ideas, and Mars is you may have creative bursts of thoughts, or of words coming in your head. So reviewing what you think of creativity, reviewing your perceptions and your understanding of the world around you and what is fun. Coming up with new ideas about what would be fun. Sometimes we just need the energy to get us up and out of the house. And we're going through the winter months. I don't snow ski here in the swamp, but hey, going to Denver and snow skiing, and
Yeah,
would that be fun? Maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Maybe your idea of fun changes. You're reconsidering what's fun to you. I mean, I'm not a fan of the snow. I like it for maybe a day, but I don't want to spend a lot of time in it. Maybe if you're having a 5th house Mars, then maybe you're thinking, oh, trying this might be interesting.
And thinking of that, neither one of us care for snow very much, but having a snowball fight with your kids could be.
Oh yeah.
But again, just for a couple of hours, then I want to go in and have hot chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
But that may be something else you're doing that's having a lot of discussion and a lot of play with your kids. Role playing would be good here. Helping them learn how to
helping them learn, helping the children learn,
helping them learn how to process their anxiety or their anger or their resentment about something. Make a game of it so that you each play the role. You remember role playing at either, or there's this role playing idea that would work here, because you're actively demonstrating perceptions and understanding. You're doing that in an active way, role playing. So that would be a good use of this energy as well. Role play your favorite character in the book you read.
And hopefully your children aren't too maybe angry or aggressive with you, because I mean that's like the lower form of Mars, is maybe your children being angry or quick with their words.
So that brings up a good point, though. When other people are outwardly assertive, I'm going to use the word assertive, and it hits you the wrong way, remember to take a breath and give it a minute.
Yeah.
And respond. We have to do this with our kids all the time. It can hurt emotionally, or we can feel that we want to respond to them the way we would at anyone else. And that's not always productive. And it's not always productive with someone else. So think about how you express yourself. And see if you're not meeting that out in the world. You're feeling anxious, so anxious moments show up with other people. Okay.
Yes, that's just and a general theme as well, isn't it, with this retrograde? Just sort of sit back, detach. You don't want to say something that you regret, so just maybe take a pause before you react.
And it is a little hard to be detached with Mars and Gemini, because Gemini is about our own perceptions and understanding our own ideas. And Mars, it being personal and attached to kind of our ego drive, we often imagine that what we believe is our identity. And, beliefs may or may not be true. And that's another kind of general theme of this Mars retrograde in Gemini. Is what I believe true? And if it is or isn't, what do I want to do about it? Right? So
yes, yeah, Gemini can be prone to exaggeration, I suppose, and at worst lies. So listen, pay attention to what you're hearing and do your own research, I guess, because you might be hearing stuff that's exaggerated.
and during the retrograde cycle, we have the pre-retrograde and the post. You may be dealing with these things up to 3 times. So, if somebody has used words in a more aggressive way, and let's face it, lying to you is a passive aggressive way of getting what they want, or not avoiding a confrontation. So lying is an aggressive thing. It's an assertive thing. Somebody has to choose to do that. And if you do have to deal with that, it will be addressed at least 3 times. So if you have this feeling that something's not quite clear, we're in the pre right now. We'll be in the retrograde phase next, and the final post retrograde. Give it until March 16th to really work out all of the issues surrounding whatever Mars retrograde is bringing up for you, and in whichever house.
Yes, yeah, true. And then once it gets into Cancer on the 26th of March, we can just move on.
Yes, except Cancer, Mars in Cancer is kind of touchy as well.
Yeah, Mars isn't
That'll be
particularly
next.
happy in Cancer, is he?
That'll be fun. Next March.
Yeah, that's true. That's not much of a reprieve after this energy, but anyway, still. Okay, 6th house.
Okay, the 6th house is about our day-to-day life. It's about maintaining our lives and our health. It's the things we do for others to be of service.
Yes.
And the sixth house can be very busy with Mars here. Like
yes, that's true.
It would be a good time to create a exercise routine.
Yeah, that's a nice
healthy,
one.
Help you be more healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
It is also, though, a time when your mind's really busy. So exercise or doing some sort of physical activity to burn off the Mars energy is also a good idea.
Yes.
Consider how you view your duties and obligations. Are they still relevant? Are they still working or helping you towards your long-term goals? Is there a lot of time spent thinking about what you're going to do and never doing it?
Procrastination.
Yes, that word. Yeah, yeah. Mars is going to make you feel as if you don't want to procrastinate anymore. You want to get things done.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. There are a lot of good things for Mars to do while he's in Gemini, and that would be one of the good things, kind of ending procrastination. However, the other part of that is Mars retrograde can make you feel as if it's hard to get things done.
Yeah.
And the relationship that Mars has with Saturn right now could add to that. But trust that any delays are there for a reason, and that you're just working out some issue with achieving what you want to achieve.
Yeah. It's it's our habits and our routines as well. So if you've been, trying to put in place, revisiting the idea that, how you have spend your 9 to 5. So how I often describe it to clients, some people don't have a 9 to 5 job, some people do, but the people that don't, how do you spend that period between 9 and 5 every day? What are you doing? What's your routine? What's your habit? So that's where the action is in with Mars going through there. But like um like you just pointed out, there is this frustration because Mars is retrograde. So maybe there is, there's the frustration whilst you're redoing things and you're revising it, trying to get the right routine for you. And then once it moves on, just think about the end phase, because once you've gone through the revising and the redoing, and it might feel a bit frustrating sometimes, you get the better picture, the clearer answers, and the information you need to make the best routine, the best habits. So it's kind of like trial and error. Your actions being pulled there, but it's trying to get it out might be tricky at first, and then you figure out the right way to move forward.
Those are good words: pull out, break, all of these things that require action or give you this image of some sort of action taking place. So breaking a habit,
Yeah.
setting a new routine, putting that effort in, that concentrated effort in. So you've got months and months to work out exactly how to do something differently. And that is the best use of Mars in the 6th house in Gemini, is the ideas. Think of some unique ideas for breaking habits, or even think of some unique foods to eat. Everybody talks about dieting.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
But you don't necessarily want to diet. You want to create a healthy, right? And so breaking the habits of having ice cream every night would be a good, find a different, maybe crackers with peanut butter. You get more protein, right? Something that celery with peanut butter, something that crunches. That would
something spicy with the Mars.
Yeah. So just change things up a little bit.
Yes, applying it to food, putting it in. Yeah, I like that idea of healthier foods, or experimenting with recipes and things,
Learn about food, learn about your health, learn about what your body needs. So exercise, food,
Yes, yes.
habits and routines, your duties and obligations. Who do you have those with? Which ones do you need to keep? Which ones can you let go of? And believe it or not, letting go is an action.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll let you talk about, I keep doing it the wrong way.
Doing it twice.
Doing it
Mars,
twice. That's right.
Mars and Gemini we're all doing it twice. So don't get frustrated if we're doing that. Mars in the 7th house. This is the house of the others. So you think of the first house as you, this is everyone else. So this is our closest relationship. So the ones that we see on a day-to-day basis, your spouse, your partner, your business partner. So there is going to be some maybe you feel like there's an action and a drive towards communicating, bringing in that partner in some way. But then obviously, don't forget, there's the frustration with the retrograde. And then we find maybe a new way to relate, a new way to communicate with our nearest and dearest. So it is really think about the how you are relating with your closest relationships.
Give some thought to what you really want, because Mars is about your desires and about your needs. And so your goals in a relationship. So think about what you really want. Find a way to put those desires into words. One of the situations here is, maybe you're not in a relationship. Maybe, you might have coworkers that you have relationships with and on a daily basis, but you're not in a personal relationship, an intimate relationship. And maybe you could make a dream board of what that relationship would look like when you have it, when someone comes along. And those dream boards do a lot to activate how we see ourselves in relationships. What we are looking for, our desires in relationships, are really a mirror for what we desire of ourselves. And you could also find that there's some resentment, long held anger, resentment that is in a relationship that you do have that needs to be addressed so that things can come out in the open and they can be worked out. Don't necessarily take anything that comes up in here personally. Everyone is having this Gemini in Mars retrograde in Gemini somewhere in their chart. So everyone is feeling this anxiety and this stress and feeling as if they are motivated to put their own desires out front. And this is about what we desire in a relationship. Well, what we desire in a relationship usually requires at least one other person, right? And
Yeah.
so if we're bringing those things up, chances are we're bringing them up with someone else, or someone is bringing them up with us. And this is just the time to kind of iron out those things. Another good action word, iron them out.
Yes, I know.
And in order for it to be ironed out, it has to be brought out into the open.
Mm-hmm. You have to look at those creases before you iron them.
Mm-hmm.
Find out where the creases are. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Okay. So
We're moving on to the 8th.
There we go.
Fire in the 8th. I just thought of a bit of just made me think of like a passionate time in the bedroom because the 8th house can associate with that part of your life.
Gemini, though, there may be a lot of fiery texts.
Yes, yeah.
Communication, though, about death, sex, and taxes is definitely on par here.
Yeah.
Some spicy texts.
The spicy text.
spicy text. So there's also this idea of our emotional attachments, um,
Yeah.
and the things that so the eighth house has a lot to do with experiences that we've had that created some sort of um, strongly emotional reaction. And so it's kind of deep emotionally in us. And so to deal with those things usually requires some sort of transformative energy. Um, and so, when we are young and things happen and they kind of lay the groundwork for how you're going to respond to these types of situations for the rest of your life. Sometimes we have to look at those reactions and say, what am I attached to here? What leads me to respond this way? And maybe it was, your mother always said this, and your dad always did that. And so you have an attachment to the way that you experienced that experience before, but now you're an adult. And so you get to change. This is kind of that habitual response coming up to be ironed out, just like in the relationship section. It's also about shared resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And part of shared resources is financial.
Yeah.
It can be anywhere from financial to emotional shared responses to things. So the reason I'm bringing that up is it can often be lies, shared lies, like this is hidden in the family, and there's an attachment to keeping it hidden. Either because it embarrasses us or it hurts, or we don't want everyone to know about it. And so this could be some open discussions about things that happened in the past. And we need to share these things with at least one other person, and then they stop having the emotional impact on us that they had before. So there could be a lot of psychotherapy going on.
Yeah, it does go down deep, this house. It's also like death and rebirth. So it's, getting rid of the old you to bring in the new. In some way, there might be a way in that you're looking at that. What do I need to let go of to bring in the new for me? Having this activated, and also other people taking control. This is other people's opinions, other people's values. You might feel like other people are hammering on at you to do this or do that, and then you're rethinking this. Actually, no, I need to pull away a bit and take some time for me, because it can feel like you have a lot of action and a lot of energy and drive moving towards dealing with other people. I mean, sometimes when you get eighth house transits, there's a lot of energy dealing with, like you said, other people's money. So like tax stuff or probate things, or, inheritance issues, like that can really take up a lot of your time. So it could be something mundane like that as well.
In fact, we should look for a lot of tax changes to come through before tax season next year.
Yes. Yeah.
But we can, the shared resource aspect of this could mean that there's some contention in deciding how shared resources should be spent.
Yeah, true.
What should be done with them. So there's big discussions around that.
Yes.
And that would apply to taxes as well. How much taxes do we have to pay, right? Now,
And debts.
Somebody else gets to decide that.
Yeah. If you have debts, like joint debts with another person, this is a good time. You might have some friction working out the way forwards, but actually, then you come together and figure out, this is after some debating and not arguing, this is the best path forwards for us,
Mm-hmm. Yes. There is a slight chance that you would overspend or overestimate what would mean to you.
Don't do that with Christmas.
Yeah. Just just kind of go slow and steady.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the advantage of having this alignment at that trine with Saturn. This would be helping us to maintain the right level of give and take instead of just acting willy-nilly to do whatever we want. You might feel that a partner is doing that,
Yeah.
acting willy-nilly, and you play the role of Saturn and go, oh no, you need to slow down, or your partner may be doing that for you. If those situations come up, that discussion will be very, very eye-opening. And I'm sure that you guys can reach a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Ninth house.
mm,
Moving on. So we were talking about with the third house, the mind being active. I think this is obviously this is the mind as well, but this is the deeper part of it. This is, when we think of what we were talking about with the third house and an active, busy mind on a day-to-day basis, this is where we do our master's degree, our doctorates. This is where we really apply that knowledge. With the third house being more of like the student, this is where we become the teacher, the master. So what are we figuring out in this ninth house with this Mars going through there? Do we want to study more? Do we want to learn more about, go deeper with a certain subject? Do you want us to go down and really figure out your truth, the higher meaning, the greater purpose? It might really just put in those topics into review for you.
and that's kind of what this house is about, is what is your worldview? What are your philosophies? What are your higher beliefs? Those things that tell you how you fit into the world, the outside world. So your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about the world, you might be re-examining those. You may actually travel during this time and learn some about other cultures. And if you're not learning, you can always learn from a book. You may write about another culture, read about another culture, or go and experience that other culture.
Yeah.
Do take care, again, use that Saturn to plan well and to do things slowly, I guess is how I want to say that. Don't, rashly decide you're going to a third world country and volunteer because, you're supposed to be going out and going to working with Doctors Without Borders or something, only, you're a janitor. So,
No rash. Yeah. Don't be too rash.
do not try to force your beliefs on other people. Because ninth house energy can be very dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is right, my beliefs are right, everybody else is wrong, kind of thing. So consider both sides of the equation when you are here. If you do go to somewhere to work with Doctors Without Borders, realize you are not a part of that culture, but you are there experiencing that culture as an outsider. So those people have their beliefs, their way of doing things, their way of looking at the world. And you can think of that as going to your neighbor's house. You're in somebody else's house. Appreciate them for who they are. Don't force your opinion on them, your way of life on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And see what they can teach you with the Gemini, what you can learn from them.
Yes, eagerly seek out information and new philosophies, a new worldview.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for the next house?
Mm-hmm. On to the 10th. This is gonna where you're seen more. So this is going to be the opposite to fit into the 4th of where we keep it intimate and at home. This might be everyone's seeing your Mars retrograde. Everyone's noticing that you're having a Mars retrograde in your 10th house, because it's how other people view us, how they see us, our reputation. It can also be a career as well. So, are you revising your career? And this is not, what do I do during 9 to 5 to make my paycheck? This is, it can be your dream career. What do you want to do? What's your vocation? What do you aspire to do? There might be a huge drive towards figuring that out, or making some efforts in that respect. And then, again, of course, maybe some frustration with Mars going retrograde, but look at what you're learning. What questions do you want to ask yourself about that part of your life? And then, as we've said, finding the way forward once you've got some answers during this time.
So the 10th house being about career does mean that there's going to be an increased concentration of effort put into your goals and the things that you want to accomplish. There may be some frustration because the structure that you need might not be there yet to do the thing you want to do. It's also possible that if you do have a outburst of words that would have been better kept to yourself, they could be very public. So,
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
You're talking to your secretary in your office, only the button on the PA, this is an old example, but the PA button is pushed and everyone hears what you just said about Tom down in accounting, including
Tom.
So very public expression of Mars.
Accidentally pressing reply all on an angry email.
Yeah, that too. So you want to make sure that you're putting this energy to good use, especially in the 10th house, because whatever you do will be noticed, will be public. And great athletes. Athletes will have that with this placement their efforts would be noticed. Now that is the thing, whatever you do will be noticed. So look at what you're doing before you do it and ask yourself, if this were known by 5 other people, would I be okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how you decide what is appropriate behavior and what's not. And also your beliefs here, your beliefs about your career. How could you change what you believe you are capable of? What could you do? What is the perspective that keeps you locked into a specific career, let's say? Maybe the janitor does want to go work with Doctors Without Borders. Well, what would we need to do that? There's a lot of different needs in an environment like that, other than the actual doctor or the nurses. Maybe that janitor is needed. Maybe he just never asked, do you need a janitor? Can I come help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, go to that extra effort to understand what is actually needed for you to achieve your goal. For you to get where you want to be career-wise. Now, this is day-to-day work. So this is reputation. This is your public persona, your public identity. And you're going to be putting a lot of effort into thinking about that public identity. Make it what you would like it to be, not just the consequences of unintended words or actions. Okay.
Yep.
So 2 more houses.
Mm-hmm. Getting there.
The 11th.
Yep, 11th. So what's your hopes, wishes, and dreams? Have you been putting a lot of thought into that part of what do I really want? What do I want to make? What do I want to manifest? That's sort of some 11th house themes. And am I being frustrated with my hopes and my wishes? Are my dreams being dashed a bit because I want to put this drive into what my dreams are, but it's been slow in some way, it's been frustrated. So again, sort of just take on board what you're learning. maybe you step forward with a dream and then you think, actually, I don't, I want to I'd love to buy a bed and breakfast. That's my dream. And then you go and visit the town in Vermont where you want to open up this bread and breakfast, I don't know, this guest house. And then it's really cold here. I'm going to maybe think of a different place to open it up. You could learn stuff that really changes the direction of your dreams during this period.
It's about our hopes and dreams. But it's also about the future. It's also about the groups we belong to in our social networks. Do you know the right people to get you where you want to go? And that's going to be, you have the energy to search them out. Begin to socialize with people and have exchanges with people that can help you reach those goals, those dreams. It's also possible that you could experience some tension in the current social network that you have, or the current group you belong to. So you sense this or experience contentious relationships within the groups. It's a good idea in this setup that even if you belong to a group, that you work independently towards a shared goal, but independently. Like, you have these tasks, I do, those tasks they do, right? So you have less chance of having a conflict within the group.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to find a new group. Find new relationships.
Maybe you need to join a debating team.
There you go. That would be good.
That would be a great
yeah.
use of it. You might find a new group. But your friendship circles and those friends that you have, just be aware if they are using aggressive words or behavior towards you. That can be the sort of lower form of the Mars in Gemini in the going retrograde in the 11th house.
And it is possible that groups could get persuaded, ramped up by someone with very persuasive words, passionate words. If you're the person doing that, just know that it's in a large audience listening to you. But also notice if people are getting wrapped up in kind of a group mentality, like a large group of individual minds are all of a sudden, feeling anger or resentment or directed in a certain way. And that may be part of what causes the contention is this kind of persuasive, like one person having the ability to persuade a large number of people in maybe a negative way. Maybe just for some passion, right? This is the season where, we get all of the ads for charitable contributions, right? And sometimes it just seems like they come at a certain time of the year and they can get annoying and aggravating. Yet when they're presenting them, if you just see them once, they're very persuasive, right? Donate here for this animal group, this children's group, that. But it just seems to come all over the place. So, look for things like that. But if you have a need to do a public presentation, just know you do have the ability to use some very passionate words to get people to, as a matter of fact, the midterms or elections are right after this in the US. So expect a good bit of passionate speech to come out around then. That moves a lot of people one way or the other over the spectrum.
Yeah. Good time to study groups, working with your friends. Maybe that's a good way of using this Mars with the friends. Studying together. If you have exams, bring that in.
And again, team sports.
Yes. Yep.
Sports where the active team sports. I'm not talking about sitting and playing chess or something that doesn't require activity, but doing something that actually engages the body and the mind.
Yeah.
Will burn off some of this Mars energy. Okay, you ready?
Yep. Last house.
Yes, last house. Okay. So the 12th house is kind of our subconscious mind. It is known in astrology and ancient astrology as a house of hidden enemies, where the 7th is a house of open enemies. The 12th is a house of hidden enemy. It has to do with the past. It has to do with what we're letting go of. And for Mars to be retrograde in the 12th house, there is a need to let go of the past somehow, and it's intense. It requires you to participate in this letting go. A lot of things that happen in our subconscious mind we aren't aware of at all. But Mars is going to bring up something from the past, from the subconscious mind, that needs to be addressed. And this is for you personally. It needs to be addressed. And the energy to do it is all back there. It's working back there in your subconscious mind. So meditation would be good. Allowing your subconscious mind to bring up for you old perceptions, old ideas, old beliefs that aren't going to serve you in the next go around, the next time Mars goes around the chart. Allow yourself to bring those up and say, okay, no, doing things that way won't serve me anymore. And here's what I'm going to do to address that.
Yeah. And sometimes it can trigger your mental health, your mental health well-being. The 6th house is our body, our physical health. The 12th house is our mind's health, our mental health. So sometimes it can feel like it's activating those dark places or the places deep within you that we don't talk about or share with even our close friends sometimes. So if you're feeling like it's revisiting or revamping or going up over some stuff that's maybe triggering your mental health, then it could be a good time to talk about it, get some therapy.
It could be past actions. Excuse me, that
Bless you.
you gain a new perspective on,
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to see actions you took in the past, or for this past go around, the last 2 years, the things that have been happening in your life for the past 2 years. It's time to let go of those now and get ready to start again, to do things differently, to have some new goals and some new ambitions, to decide how you want to present your desires going forward. And so for the past 2 years, so we were talking about the subconscious, the way past, right? And the 12th house can represent that, but it can also represent whatever cycle is the planet has when it goes across the cusp of the first house. And so Mars, it's a 2-year cycle. And so Mars is at the end for a Cancer ascendant. Mars is at the end of a 2-year cycle. And so Mars wants to know, what are we going to do going forward? And what do we need to let go of to do that, to meet that goal, to have that ambition? How have my goals and my desires changed since the last time I was here?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there can be some karma in the 12th house as well. So, there might be some events that come up that are like you said, linking to the past, but also linking to like karmic events as well that in your life that you've experienced. This is the comeback time.
for
finishing up lessons as well, isn't it? Finishing up stuff.
right. So lessons of the past 2 years, lessons of
2 years lessons. Yeah.
lessons of any time period, really, because the
Mm.
12th house is kind of infinite. It can go on and on and on. So I have enjoyed this. I think this hopefully is
Yeah.
helpful to everyone out there. And again, remember, if you are looking at your chart, you will want to find Gemini
Chart. Yeah.
in your chart and listen to the area or the house that represents that
Period. So from 8 to 25 of Gemini. So look towards that
and
part.
also look for any planets in your natal chart that are at that degree, 8 to 25 Gemini.
Yeah.
And you will have a good sense of what planetary energy in your chart is being triggered, and what area of your chart is being triggered. So we talked about Gemini in each house, and irrespective of any triggers in your natal chart, but just the house in your natal chart. And there nothing in astrology happens in isolation. And so this Mars retrograde is affecting your chart all the way around, even though it might be happening in a specific house, it's touching on other planets. And it's, on specific angles. And each house has its own type of signature energy. And this Gemini in that house can be uncomfortable or comfortable, strong or less strong. And so you've got to take all of that into account. And the best way to do that is to contact Emmaleen at Emmalene's Astrology, or me, Dorothy Taylor at Soul of Chiron, and get a personal reading of your chart and where this is actually going to be happening and what would trigger, the other aspects it would trigger in your chart. Anyway, I've had a great time, Emily.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been so much fun. I've enjoyed doing this, working with the Mars and seeing how it's affecting us all, because I think generally it's going to be a frustrating time where we feel we're being held back before we can move forwards. But just think about the end game. When we move forwards, we're going to move forwards with more drive, more action, more clarity, more information.
And really, the winter months are when it's going to, the retrograde is in effect. And
Yeah.
that's usually a slower time for people, except for the holiday shopping. It's usually a slower time for people. So, just be patient. Think about all the things you want to do in the future and make plans to do those things. This could be a very productive Mars in retrograde in Gemini, and it can be very life-changing, actually. We only get this opportunity every 2 years, and Gemini has not happened since 1943. So it could be a very productive time. This is a once in a lifetime event, meaning retrograde in Gemini, not Mars retrograde. Mars retrogrades every 2 years, but in Gemini, a once in a lifetime event for all of us. So enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy. And thanks, everyone. Thanks for staying with us. And we appreciate you. If you have any comments, you can drop them below on our YouTube channel, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Dorothy. Take care. Till next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.